Hey everybody, I'm Magic here, and I'm here today to talk about the good hand traps to be using in the current format. So with the release of the Albaz structure deck and just the way the meta is looking, there's going to be some very key hand traps that should kind of be in almost, I'd say, everyone's deck. And you're going to see why in a moment, but before we go into the video, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below what video you want to see next, and let's get straight into the video. So, the first one that I'm going to talk about is kind of a given. It's very generic. It is Ash Blossom. So, a lot of you are probably thinking, well, we always put in Ash anyway. Where's the new spice? Ash is incredibly key in this format specifically, with cards like Branded Fusion being about. That means that's prime Ash bait right there. You are going to need to stop that from going off because Branded Fusion is going to be a very problematic card to deal with. The whole Branded Fusion, Albion, ending on possibly a Dragoon, a DPE, a Winder, all these really difficult, hard to deal with cards are going to be around, and we do not want this to happen. So Ash should be being played at full capacity for everyone who's using it, just because Branded Fusion is such a broken card that you are going to need to deal with this card. So the second that pops off, you need to Ash that and nip it in the bud, because if you don't, you're going to end on a seriously problematic board that you have to go against from one card that can be stopped with an Ash. However, there are cards to protect Branded Fusion, so there are multiple cards that the Branded players are using, either Meltdown with the Invoked package or their own built-in protection. Either way, it's going to make it hard for you to respond. However, that's if they open the perfect hand. 9 times out of 10, your opponent isn't going to open the God Hand, but if they do open the God Hand, there's nothing you could have really done anyway. But Ash is a very crucial card. And not just for Branded. Remember, Sky Striker is still in the format, so you need to think Sky Striker, engage, that can be a problem. You need to think DPE is still about. So, fair enough, Ash doesn't stop the Verte, but it will stop the Fusion Destiny, which can still be ashed. Red Eyes Fusion, people might be leaning towards going towards playing Red Eyes Dark Dragoon again. Obviously, because of the Branded Fusion, it is going to be a card, but you can't really change that with Ash anyway. But with the reprint as well coming up in the tins, you might see more Red Eyes Fusions and Red Eyes and Dark Magicians being played. Just as people slapping in because it should go down in price with the reprint. So that's something that you should always kind of just keep in the mind. Of course, Eldritch still a deck, ashing a Scarlet Sanguine is a very good play. So there are still a lot of plays for Ash. Of course, Brave Engine is still about. You want to sometimes stop them from adding stuff or anything like that. Ash is just one of the most generic hand traps, but it's going to be very crucial, I believe, this format specifically. So that's kind of why I believe that everyone should be playing it to max capacity, because it's more of a high impact than sometimes other formats where it has a slight impact, but it's more just generic than everything else. Coming into another card that I truly believe should be in everyone's main deck, and that is Gamma. So the Gamma package. So the reason why I'm saying the Omega and Gamma package is because there are going to be a lot of hand traps in this format, and this is kind of the counter of hand traps. I always preach that this should be a going second card. If you are going second or having a going second deck, this is where Gamma should be at the most. However, there are going to be a lot of cards in this format which are going to kind of let you use Gamma to more potential. Well, I say Gamma, I mean the Omega Gamma package. So when you look at something like Super Polymerization being in the format, that means that you may be able to do plays, they interact, you now lose your monsters. If you have a card to kind of come back from that, they could then interact with that, but now you don't have any monsters, so boom, Omega Gamma. So you have a negate. If you are playing Branded, activate Branded Fusion, they Ash, cool, Omega Gamma. Not Omega, whatever, Gamma package. Yeah, Gamma package, driver, So you have to look at it like this. There's going to be a lot of back row things. So if you're playing Eldritch, for example, and you just set a couple pass, activate Scarlet Sanguine, they're going to chain the Ash. Gamma. So there are a lot of plays where Gamma can be used, and I do kind of think this is more of a format where it will be more useful. When other hand traps are being used against you when you're playing Branded, for example, if you go for a going second option, which is a very powerful option, having Gamma is going to be really ideal. So that's kind of why I think like the Gamma driver package definitely should be put into a lot of the decks being used in the format. Not to mention as well, let's not forget that the whole Albaz branded stuff can use Dogmatica plays. So if that means Dogmatica plays, that means Maximus. That means Maximus, that means losing stuff from your extra deck, which can be crucial. So having an Omega, which you can also use with the Gamma and driver, just also helps you out with Maximus plays by keeping your extra deck there instead of feeling like you lose out each turn that Maximus is there. At least this way you can recycle stuff back and just not lose advantage in the way they're trying to make you lose advantage, because that could be crucial. So yeah, 100% I reckon the Gamma package should be put into decks. It is a light, so if you want to go down this going second branded route, hell, you might be able to just send that as well if you wish. But, you know, you might as well. But yeah, 100% the Gamma package should be in. Another light hand trap, which I really think should be in everyone's main deck, is Lancia. Artifact Lancia will stop a lot of your opponent's plays. Lancia against branded can sometimes shut down their plays because 9 times out of 10 they're going to go for Albion. So if they don't have anything that protects the Albion effect, you then Lancia, now they can't extend. Against the Mirror Jade as well, because that's going to do send something to the grave to do a targeting banish. Again, banish, a really great way of removal. So Lancia 100% will kind of stop the branded deck. There's another deck that is going to be a really, really big problem as well. Flew Under Ease. Flew Under Ease died to Lancia. So this is another deck that I reckon, you know, that you should be thinking, okay, it stops that, it stops this. It doesn't stop Striker, so if you're playing Striker, you should be playing Lancia right now, because it is incredibly broken against the now top 2 decks, I'd say. If you look at PK, you know, PK Brave is still a really, really strong deck. That as well will lose to Lancia. So that's another thing you need to remember. All these decks will lose to Lancia. Eldritch as well, it's more of a hindrance but during the end phase, but you know, might as well just add it in there just because. But yeah, Lancia just deals with a lot of decks, a lot of problems. So I really would strongly say that you should all be playing it. Virtual World, I know that sometimes they're not going to be the best in this format. I do reckon they are a good deck if you are a good pilot and you know what to put in there exactly for the format. But yeah, Virtual World could be really good. Lancia then, that stops a lot of their plays. That stops their searches for Qinglong. That stops the kind of setting up for the Chuche pop. It makes Shen Shen offline. And if you do it correctly, it stops the Shen Shen from being resummoned as well. So yeah, it can stop a lot of really powerful decks. There's just a lot of decks that will lose to Lancia in one way, shape or form. So I really would recommend that everyone be playing Lancia in the main deck, because there's no reason really not to. Obviously, like I said, something like Striker should be playing it more than anyone else, because they're the one deck that really doesn't lose to Lancia, but still, you know, more reason to play it if you don't lose to it, but your opponent does. And finally, the last hand trap I want to talk about is a very generic hand trap as well, and I've left it till last because, I don't know, but yeah, Imperm, not Veiler, Imperm only. Because I feel like Imperm is a really, really powerful card, but there's going to be a lot of things that you're still going to have to overcome on your turn where you're going to need the Imperm, more than a Veiler. Veiler, really good, used from the hand, doesn't have as many restrictions, but it's only during your opponent's turn, where you need to think of it like there's still going to be Scythelocks. Scythelock is going to be the most annoying thing to deal with, because it's also used on your turn. Imperm can stop that. Of course, a Gamma can stop that as well, like I mentioned. But Imperm is going to deal with that amazingly, because it's going to stop the Scythe from locking you out. Because you've got to remember, Scythe is still about. Having to then deal with something like a Fallen in the Albaz as well, because that is just a walking super polymerization. That's going to be something you can deal with. Against Albion, if they're setting up, you can then, boom, stop that. Against any Flew Under Ease player, because they're going to have a lot of chain links, this doesn't care about the chain links, and will then stop your opponent. I get they will have the card that then just tributes it away, so you do have to deal with that problem. But that's if they see it, that's 3 cards out of 40. But I just really strongly think Imperm, not Veiler. Imperm 100%. The only deck that I think should be playing Veiler is Sky Striker, or any deck that's going to go very strongly into the Halki Firebrax, into Saline, into Access Code Talker Climb, which Striker do amazingly well with. So that's a deck, obviously, I would still say use your Veiler, but I still really strongly believe that, unfortunately, Imperm is the better card for all of these. It's just so much better in many ways, and the fact that also there's a lot of back row in this format, when you think of putting it in the right column for a Fog Blade from PK, putting it in the right column for Flew Under Ease because they're going to have continuous spells, putting it, you know, in the right column for this, that and the other, it's just going to be really impactful against your opponent. If your opponent's playing any form of Albaz deck and they have their continuous spell, or any spell back row, stop that. The fact that it can also stop your opponent's back row and is the kind of one of the best monster negates right now, barring obviously something like a Gamma, which is going to destroy it as well, anything like that. It's just really powerful, really generic, really cheap as well. Yes, I know Ghost Ogre and Imperm have just been printed in the structure deck, so a lot of people will go with Veiler, but the fact that you can stop your opponent albazing you on, you know, when they're going second because you set it, yes, Veiler can do the same. It stops you from getting Scythe DPE locked. That's the biggest one. The Scythe is going to be a real big killer this format because we are leaning towards a very fusion heavy format. The fact that Imperm can stop that really well, amazing. Winder is going to be about in this format because it can be used with the branded fusions. Imperm will deal with that because on your turn you can't Veiler them, but on your turn you can Imperm it before you start, so now you're not restricted by the one summon limits that Winder will bring you. That's another reason why you should be playing Imperm. And that, guys, is kind of all the hand traps I really would strongly recommend everyone to be playing in this current format, just to kind of get over the loops, hoops, hurdles, whatever, the problems you're going to be facing with current meta. So I hope you guys did enjoy. Obviously, let me know what I may have missed out on, because I know there's probably a hand trap out there that you're like, why didn't you say this? Obviously, comment down below what I did miss. Tell me why you kind of think a certain hand trap should be used. And like, subscribe, and share the video. But peace.